Welcome back to Crypto Comics for Rob Liefeld Appreciation Month. And you want to talk about a book that made Rob Liefeld a profit? This is a book that turned a profit for Rob and Extreme Studios and Image Comics. This is profit number 1. Now, a few days ago, we actually went through the first appearance of Prophet, as well as the first appearance of Supreme, in the pages of Youngblood, issue number 2 and 3. So I thought it only fitting for us to crack open this little gem from October of 1993. Created, written, and laid out by Rob Liefeld. Pencils and inks by Dan Panosian. Colors by Byron Talman. What has gone before? Awakening in Berlin, Germany, after some 50 years of cryogenic sleep, Jonathan Prophet found himself out of place and out of time, in a world far different than his own. Battling first the modern-day heroes known as Youngblood, before allying with them against Darkthorn and the android disciples he was created to combat, Prophet found himself cut off from DOC, Direct Orbiting Command Center, the orbiting satellite serving as his central source of information and power, eventually defeating Darkthorn and his disciples with the aid of Youngblood and a team of warriors calling themselves the Berserkers. Prophet set out to forge anew his link with DOCC. Now, accompanied by the diminutive Berserker called Kirby, Prophet seeks to re-establish contact not only with the satellite that serves as his lifeline, but with an ever-changing world that seems to have passed him by.
The Dream. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. The Lord my God is with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalms 23, 4-6. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Psalms 46:1. Through thee will we push down our enemies. Thy name will we read them under those that rise up against us. For I shall not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. But thou hast saved us from our enemies, and hast put them to shame that hated us. Psalms 44, 6-8. Those passages race through my head, giving me confidence, giving me strength. I realize now that it's the same strength my father told me he experienced when he taught the word of God to the multitudes. The strength that would fill him with the spirit to go on, even against the forces of the Reich that would rise up to oppose him, and eventually strike him down, taking a life dedicated to a higher cause. My father sacrificed his life for that cause, and in doing so, would inspire his son to do the same. Not for money, not for power, but for the cause, to combat evil in all its forms, to extinguish its many faces. Little did I know, it would be a cause I would fight for what has seemed an eternity. My body would be altered and enhanced, but my mind and soul would not. The beliefs my father taught me as a child, I still cling to as an adult. After all the wars I have fought, all the lives lost, one thing remains the same. The light has always triumphed over the dark. Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, Hitler, Graves, Darkthorn, all lieutenants in the war against the light. I enter not knowing the countenance of the latest lieutenant I face. Good Lord, no. But behold, the hand of him that betrayeth me is on the table. John 22:21. Mary, no. How can it be? Can't she see by my face the pain that I'm feeling? The betrayal, the hurt, the hate? I feel my mouth form words as if to speak, but I cannot. The cloaked figure is amused at my astonishment. He laughs at me, taunting me, mocking me. He gestures to remove his cowl. to reveal himself. My God! No! No! Prophet, wake up! Come on, John boy! Wake up! John, snap out of it! John!
You've got to use the New York accent. John! Wake up! Come on, my boy! Wake up! Snap out of it! Come on, Johnny! You can do it! Come on!
Kirby!
The one and only, pal! What's the matter, kid? You having nightmares again?
Yes, it was the dream.
Is this the dream where you end up on some spaceship fighting yourself?
Yes, that's the one.
Look, kid, I don't know if it's the altitude or what, but this just ain't right. You had the same dream every night.
Yes, but each time it goes deeper. This time Mary was in it as well.
Well, that's more like it, kiddo. Girls are a common thread in my dreams.
No, it was nothing like that. She was against me, mocking me.
Look, kid, bad dreams are a dime a dozen. Besides, there's a simple explanation for all this. You're weak. You need to reestablish your link with DOCC. That satellite is your life force. It's what makes you tick. It gives you the juice. Without it, you're sunk. My guess is you won't be having any more nightmares once we get you pumped up again. Besides, we need all the strength you got to pull this caper off. How much further are we, pilot?
We're almost in range. It'll be another 15 minutes or so. I'll let you know when we're on top of it.
Here's the coupon for Prophet number 0. You had to collect all 3 of these from the pages of Prophet in order to get your hands on Prophet number 0, which I don't have. This is a little tricky to find. You can find it, though. You can find it. Perfect. We got plenty of time to gear up before we make the jump. Look, John, are you sure you're up to this? You realize what's at stake here, don't you?
No, Kirby. I'm not quite sure I understand any of this. It's all happening so fast.
Well, that's what I'm here for. I didn't abandon my comrades, the berserkers, to stay here for nothing, kid. I'm here to guide you and get some answers.
You've always been a great help to me, Kirby. It's just that I am puzzled as to my very existence. It's not just this time or this place that puzzles me. It is my very existence. I do not understand what I've become. I must admit, I don't know that I'll ever understand what I was doing with Dr. Wells. I remember that it was a short time after my father had been murdered by Hitler's men. Being the eldest son of my family, I naturally took responsibility for my mother and younger brother. I took several jobs in order to get by, but no opportunity was greater than the one Dr. Wells presented me with. It would subject my body to a series of experiments, and he in turn would pay me handsomely. It was enough for me to get my family out of Germany and get back to the States before the war reached a fevered pitch. I began to realize that Wells was doing more than just research. I was part of a specific design, a plan to create a sort of superhuman. I was so caught up in his vision that I never thought to question his motives or where he received the funding for his superior technology and equipment. Dr. Wells assured me that the experiments were not for the Reich. His contempt for Hitler was deep. There was no love for the Fuhrer in Wells' heart. Days turned into weeks, and I began spending every waking hour at the lab, subjecting myself to test after grueling test. My family was being taken care of, and that's all that mattered to me. I was fortunate enough to meet you, Kirby. As well as young lab assistant, you befriended me and caused my worries and anxiety to pass. Then one day, Wells informed me that word of what we were doing had leaked to the Fuhrer. Hitler desired the fruits of Wells's labor. In order to avoid being discovered, he had to move quickly. I would be unable to contact my family to let them know what was happening. Wells assured me that both my family and Mary, my bride-to-be, would be taken care of. He told me I was to be a savior for all mankind, that I would combat an evil known as the disciples. I accepted Wells's word as gospel. I followed his every instruction, without question, embracing my destiny blindly, foolishly.
Extreme. I don't know if this 64-page quarterly featuring the talents of Rob Liefeld, Danny Meeke, Dan Frigga, Merritt Michael Chapier, Jeff Mitsuda, Norm Ratman, Chuck Jones, Richard Horry, and Eric Stevenson was actually ever released. I've never seen it. If you know, let me know. Ain't nothing foolish about what you did, kid. There's a higher purpose for all of us. Your good book will tell you that much. Doc Wells did the best he could under the circumstances. We tried to conceal everything, yourself included. Did a pretty good job doing it, too. Until you were prematurely discovered by that U.S. research expedition.
What of the disciples Wells spoke of? What of the Great War?
It's still coming, kid. You just landed about 50 years before it all hits the fan. Once we get you back up to full power, we'll worry about the disciples. For now, though, we gotta concentrate on breaking into that military installation and reestablishing your link with DOCC.
I'm ready for whatever we must face, Kirby. I must rejoin with DOCC. My life, my destiny, depends on it.
Yeah, well, that's more like it. We didn't come all this way to Alaska so we could fail, kid. We got lucky that Youngblood let us go after our little run-in in Germany. See Youngblood numbers 2 through 5. We've seen that. I imagine their superiors weren't real thrilled when informed of the fact that they'd let the product of their expedition up and walk away from them. If my guess is correct, right about now, everybody and their mother is figuring out a way to get you back. Interlude, Washington, D.C., the interior of the Pentagon. I would like to conclude by stating that the bioengineering used in the startling transformation of John Prophet was advanced by even today's standards. The process altered Mr. Prophet's genetic structure, giving him accelerated strength, speed, and stamina, making him virtually indestructible, absolutely unstoppable. The mystery surrounding Prophet and his creator has yet to be resolved, but the information we've ascertained from Wells' diaries has given us enough to believe that, given the proper funding, we can successfully duplicate the Prophet experiment. As we speak, John Prophet remains at large. I have been assured, though, by the agency's new liaison, that the problem will soon be corrected. Gentlemen, may I introduce to you Mary McCormick, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I assure you that at this moment, our efforts in this matter have been stepped up. All of our available resources are working overtime in an attempt to locate John Prophet. Youngblood and Bloodstrike teams have been notified and remained on standby in the event that they will be needed. We are intent on finding our man and will not stop till we have done so. She's all business. That's an independent woman, boys. Eric Larson writes The Savage Dragon number 5. Allow me to explain. Todd McFarlane allowed Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman to write some issues of Spawn, which is where we got Angela from, right? And Todd advertised those with an ad that looked just like this, except it was the Spawn logo right here, and it would say, Neil Gaiman writes, Spawn number 9. Alan Moore writes, Spawn number whatever it was. Well, Eric Larson, to spoof that, as the guy who always works on Savage Dragon, just does these. And I thought it was really funny 25 years ago, and I think it's still funny today. Quite a wit that Eric Larson has. Anchorage, Alaska, high above the Gate Research Center. Yahoo! Here we go, kid. There's no turning back now. It's all or nothing. If we don't pull this caper off, you're sunk. You need the juice that satellite link is going to supply us with. Remember, kid, you're a wanted man, and while breaking into a government research facility ain't exactly the way to go about improving your image, it's our last shot at hooking up with DOCC. You got any suggestions before we make our move?
No, Kirby. I have prayed to the Lord for strength and wisdom regarding this matter. If you would like, I would pray with you.
Sorry, kid. Praying's not my style. I'm too... Uh-oh! Halt! You are trespassing on private property. Surrender or suffer the consequences.
It would appear the enemy is upon us, Kirby.
You know, John boy, that prayer stuff might not be such a bad idea after all. To be continued. Be back here in 6 weeks. Now, let's pop it open here. Now, let's keep going and see what Rob Liefeld has to say. When I was a little boy, probably back in the 3rd grade, I read the story of Rip Van Winkle. It was an eerie tale, and I was caught in its grip. Rip wakes up one day to find that decades have passed him by. He is instantly a stranger in a strange land. Everything that was familiar to him was forever altered, and he could do nothing more than deal with this strange occurrence. This is a theme that has always been an attention-getter with me. Time and again, I would be drawn to movies, books, and comics that featured themes similar to this one. Planet of the Apes, Captain America, and Total Recall are just a few variations on this theme that have entertained me in the past years. I still can't help but think of old Rip and sympathize with his plight. From this sympathy and fascination grew a character named John Prophet, an innocent lout who would wake up one day to find that his world had changed completely in the blink of an eye, a stranger in a strange land. Of course, there's more to Prophet than that. There's his mission, the disciples, Kirby, Judas, Mary. Oops, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But you get the picture. For those of you who picked up Youngblood issues 2 through 4, you witnessed John's premature awakening. His story had just begun. Now, with the debut of his own title, we can give John the attention he deserves. The attention your cards and letters demanded. Prophet and Kirby have a long road ahead of them. One that's filled with mystery, intrigue, romance, betrayal, and of course, action and adventure. We here at Extreme Studios will be working hard to get this book out on a regular basis. As corny as this sounds, Prophet is a labor of love for many of the creative talents involved in producing the comic you hold in your hands. And as with many of our Image titles, the comic utilizes fresh new talent. There is none fresher than Dan Panosian. Unless you've been living in a cave, you'll recognize Dan's name from his work on titles such as X-Men, X-Force, and Wonder Man. Dan first burst onto the scene a few years back, taking the comic scene by storm with his eye-popping inking. Artists such as myself, Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Brandon Peterson, and Jeff Johnson have all benefited from Dan's beautiful inking ability. With Prophet, Dan has added the task of penciling to his list of credits. After receiving his first batch of pages for this issue, I was forced to respond with a loud proclamation of, "Is this guy talented or what?" As you can see, Dan's pencils are fantastic. Dan's penciling grows with every page, and if you liked his work on this issue, just wait till you see his future issues. Wowzers! Keep an eye on Dan Panosian. You won't regret it. Byron Talman, color artist supreme, has jumped on board the Prophet Express to make sure each and every issue you receive is filled with lush, beautiful painted colors. Byron is slaving away on this title, determined to make it his finest work to date. The most amazing fact I could tell you about the Extreme Color team is that before 2 months ago, none of them had colored a comic on a computer. The team is made up of Jason Irwin, Andrei Kromoff, Ron Reif, and Don Skinner. Their mission is simple: improve each and every page. Mission accomplished, guys. Watching these guys work is an inspiration to everyone in the studio. Look closely at the color detail they add to this comic. Keep it up, guys, and thanks for your hard work. Kurt Hathaway grew another pair of limbs, just so he'd be able to add this book to his long list of lettering chores. Thanks, Kurt. We appreciate it. Eric Stevenson has promised to crack the whip real hard if anyone falls behind on their assignments on Prophet, and believe me, he means it. There's no tougher editor in comics. We're fortunate to have Eric on board. We just hope he finds enough time to write all those books he's committed himself to. Good luck, Eric. Finally, I'll be here every issue supplying the story and layouts, and, for as long as I'm able, the script. That rounds out the creative team. Rest assured, everyone here is devoted to producing a comic of the highest quality. In closing, I'd like to note that many of the passages scattered throughout this and future issues of Prophet are taken from the Holy Bible, the King James Edition. It will be used on a regular basis, as Prophet draws strength and wisdom from them. If you've never read the Bible before, you should give it a chance, for no other reason than the fact it contains, at least for me, the very first superheroes. Before I was turned on to comic books, I was entertained by the heroes of the Old Testament: David and Goliath, Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, Gideon, Samson and Delilah, my personal favorite too, and A Life of Moses are but a few examples of stories containing larger-than-life heroes battling truly evil villains. Some Bibles contain illustrations depicting many of these epic battles. I found that these added to my enjoyment of the stories. Nowadays, some of them are even available in comic book format. Check them out, and hopefully, you'll get as much enjoyment out of them as I did as a kid. So that is Prophet, issue number 1. Got a couple pinups here, that's fun. Still promoting that Deathmate Red, man. Jeez, never ends. So I know that there's a lot of you image heads out there who have been waiting very patiently for me to get to Prophet, and I hope that I have not let you down with this reading. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new here, subscribe, hit that ding dong for notifications. And if you really want to show me some support, please go to megawattcomic.com and back my Kickstarter for my comic book, Megawatt versus the Vampires of the Sun, written by yours truly and drawn by Josh Spencer. That's at SpencerTunes on Twitter. We need each and every one of you beautiful people in Webtown to support us so that we can hit our goal by Halloween. This is the perfect Halloween book for adults and for kids. It's totally suitable for kids too. It's got an amazing plot about a trio of luchadors who have to stop a coven of bloodthirsty vampires with a nefarious plan for undocumented immigrants in the United States. These vampires have been smuggling immigrants into the United States, not just for food, but for a much more sinister purpose that will change the future of mankind forever. So check it out. It's Megawatt versus the Vampires of the Sun, now available on Kickstarter. Just go to megawattcomic.com. It'll take you right there. And as always, I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in here, and I look forward to coming back tomorrow for Rob Liefeld Appreciation Month. And what are we going to talk about? Another buff image stud from Extreme Studios. We're going to talk about Supreme. I'll see you then. Crypto Comics.